Just last night, the White House Director of National Intelligence finally released its declassified report on the origins of COVID-19.
But that report mainly details how agencies are divided about whether it started in a lab or in nature. It says, quote, variations in intelligence in the community, analytic views on the origins of COVID-19 pandemic largely stem from differences in how agencies weigh intelligence reporting and scientific publications and intelligence and scientific gaps. All agencies continue to assess that both the natural and laboratory-associated origin remain plausible hypotheses to explain the first human infection.
Here to help make sense of this, Ohio Congressman Brad Wenstrup, chairman of the House Select Subcommittee on the COVID pandemic. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being here. So are we still doing this runaround? Oh, it could have been anything, when common sense and a lot of evidence has pointed to exactly where it came from?
Yeah, so let's start with the comment that you just had up there that came from the report, which led me to ask on Intelligence Committee, a place where I've been studying this for the last 3 years, is who did you actually talk to? Because that matters. And I'm digging down into that right now, because if you're only talking to people that have a motive to say that this came from nature, you're going to get a variety of opinions. And I will tell you that what I have seen so far is that DOE and the FBI have done the most work dealing with the experts that would have the most ability to make a conclusion, and especially one that would lean towards it coming from the lab. But this report is very disturbing from the standpoint that unanimously in the House, and President Biden signed it, we sought to declassify all the intelligence that they would have pertaining to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and origins of COVID. And now they present this and say there's a classified annex. The whole idea was to declassify. And I've been looking at this for 3 years, and even 2-3 years ago, we realized China has the capability, as do we, to create a chimera, to create a gain-of-function type of virus. We've also discovered things that the Government Accountability Office has revealed, that U.S. dollars were going to China for coronavirus research. But what the report did show is that there were biosafety deficiencies in China with training and with policies. But there are also things that we have looked at, is there were problems within the facilities themselves. And that said genetically engineered coronaviruses. That's important to know. And that scientists fell ill in 2019. Now, one of the things they say in the report is that not all of their symptoms were consistent with COVID-19. Well, I can tell you as a physician watching this from the beginning, every person has been different. Some people didn't even know they had COVID. So I don't think that should even be mentioned in there. But if they had COVID-type symptoms, that's enough. But also, their executive summary at the very beginning did point out that we were only looking at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, but keep in mind that their military component is right in Wuhan also, and they look at bioweapons and coronaviruses. It's called the Fifth Institute, and after the pandemic, the military actually took over the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So I think it's very deficient report.
Yeah, I don't think I need a fancy report to figure out that they disappeared a bunch of whistleblowers, Chinese scientists very early on were disappeared, red flag right there. Then we had the emails from Anthony Fauci and his buddies sort of covering up, so we exposed that as well. And now, we're going to talk to you about these payments that were made to the Biden family, but it seems to me like, they killed 7 million people with COVID. And if it came out that China was indeed not just responsible for it, for whether nefariously or by accident with the lab leak, that they should be held accountable. And somehow this report gets them off the hook. And at the same time, the Biden family is getting tens of millions of dollars from the Chinese. Sounds like a pretty cheap way to keep the cover on this for China.
Well, I think you're connecting the dots pretty well there, Rachel. But, more disturbing is what was actually going on in this country since COVID began, and especially as we're trying to find the origins. We've done transcribed interviews on all the authors of what was called Proximal Origins, which came out in early 2020, stating that this came from nature. Well, let's back this up a little bit. At the end of February, Christian Anderson emails Dr. Fauci and says, this thing looks engineered. Christian Anderson is one of the authors of Proximal Origins. So he goes from saying it looks engineered to emphatically saying it came from nature with other authors. But what we found from internal documents is that he also had conversations with other people, and in those conversations he said that Dr. Fauci prompted the writing of proximal origins, and he also said that his job was to focus on disproving the lab leak theory. You know, what is going on with that? Why should that be? And I will tell you, we found out Dr. Anderson had some internal communications using Slack messaging, and that was our first subpoena this week, is to get the information that was taking place in his Slack messaging.
I mean, a virus comes out of Wuhan, and there's a virology lab in Wuhan, and we're still debating it.
Yeah.
This
and
later.
a military,
And a military, as the chairman pointed out.
Yeah.
Brad Wenstrup, thank you, Congressman.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
You got it.